This episode is sponsored by the Consorzio Moscato d'Asti.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wine Enthusiast Podcast. My name is Jeff Porter. I'm a writer at large here at Wine Enthusiast, and today we are talking about Moscato d'Asti, the fun, vivacious, fruit-forward wine from Piemonte. And we had Giacomo Pondini, the director of the Consorzio Asti DOCG, to tell us everything we don't know. Giacomo, it's great to see you. It's been a while. You and I have, in different lives, been around each other in the wine world for a long time, but I'm excited today to talk about Moscato d'Asti with you. It's a historic wine, a wine that means a lot to me personally, as one of the first wines I had in my entire wine life. But welcome to Wine Enthusiast Podcast.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me. Thank you, Wine Enthusiast. I'm glad to keep working with you through our. I think it's more around 20 years that we know in each other. So I'm super glad to keep talking with you.
You know, it's interesting. I was reflecting back on like my experience with Moscato d'Asti, and I wanted to give you like a nostalgia that really hit me. So when I was 21 years old, just freshly 21, because unlike here in Italy, and 21 is what we have to when we get to drink in the States legally. A friend of mine who had lived in for study abroad in Italy, she came back and she's like, "Dude, I got this whole new thing for us. Are you ready? Meet me at Zilker Park." I lived in Austin, Texas at the time. And she showed up with prosciutto, which I'd never had before, a cantaloupe, which I'd had before, and a bottle of wine. And in Texas at that time, you couldn't have alcohol at the park. So we were breaking the law. But she pulled the wine and it hit me like a garden and a peach orchard all at once. And it was a light bulb went off in my head being like, what is this? And this, one of the many things that stepped me up in the wine. You know, is Moscato d'Asti more than just a sweet wine?
Yeah, as you said, it's an explosion in your mouth and in your brain as well, because it's a completely new different style of wine that you expect from considering non-aromatic wines. Moscato d'Asti is not only a sweet wine, it's not just a sweet wine. It's a wine that is balanced, aromatic, with a light sparkling that where sweetness it's not just the only component, is one of the component, because all these components in the end balance the outcome of the one that you're tasting. There's a vibrant acidity with light effervescence that always enhances freshness, and the 5% usually that you find in Moscato d'Asti grape, 5% of alcohol, makes the wine so airy, not heavy, and it's always delightful to have a glass of Moscato d'Asti.
I think maybe let's back up a little and let's situate ourselves. So Asti, I think where are we? Who are you? And what is this wine that we're talking about? How's it made?
Well, the wine actually is named Asti because the appellation, the DOCG wine, which is the highest level of quality wines in Italy, is based on two styles of wine: the sparkling, which is Asti sparkling, and the fizzy, the semi-sparkling wine, which is Moscato d'Asti. We're talking about mainly today about Moscato d'Asti, and this wine is produced in an area in the northwestern of Italy, in region Piedmont, in three different provinces: Asti, which is the central one, and then you also have the provinces of Alessandria and Cuneo, and 51 different municipalities are involved in the production of Moscato grapes, which are the only allowed for the production of Asti sparkling and Moscato d'Asti.
And then so for the wine that we're talking about today, Moscato d'Asti, like I know it as a fun, fizzy, fruity, exuberant, like energetic wine. And it's fizzy, and we say here in Italy, frizzante, right? And how
Exactly.
does it get that fizziness?
The fizziness comes from a specific way of producing this wine that actually was invented in late 19th century by Federico Martinotti, a local enologist that was helping wineries to produce a sparkling wine that didn't have to go through the two different moments of the classic method. Asti was born as a sparkling wine in around the 1865 as a classic method. By the end of that century, there was the introduction of a new way of producing wine that was created by Federico Martinotti. As he was working here as a consultant enologist, and he helped producing wine with the second fermentation directly in the tank. That was allowing producers to avoid all the losses of bottle that they were facing at the beginning of production, and that also allowed to control the fermentation and stop the fermentation at a specific moment where they wanted a specific level of sugar zero, but most of all when they wanted to have a lower alcohol percentage between 5 and 6, which is the level of alcohol in a Moscato d'Asti nowadays as well.
And then about what year did we see the first Moscato d'Asti as we know it show up to the market?
I think we have to go back to the 60s around that time, where wineries were also trying to produce their own Moscato d'Asti with a specific way of filtering wines that were using old bags. We used to call them the Dutch bags. I don't know if it sounds like good in your language, but they used to filter wine, this sparkling wine more and more as long as they could remove all the sugar residual in order to stop the fermentation.
And then so we start to see it in the 60s. And you know, when I first had it, it was interesting. I didn't have it as like a dessert wine. I had it as a picnic wine. And it was sweet and it was fun and it was fruity. But like what was it originally used for? Because it's like it's got a few hundred grams per liter of sugar in a bottle, correct?
Exactly. But it comes from the agricultural tradition, so that means that it became a wine that, as seen by the Italian consumers mainly, as a perfect match for desserts or sweet treats. But the thing is that being born in the country, it was used by people who were living in the country and they were pairing it. They probably didn't even have enough money to buy the cake on Sunday, or maybe they could produce it at home, but they use that Moscato d'Asti to boost their day-to-day life and using it on their normal meals. And it's the typical tradition. It's a traditional pairing here to to use Moscato d'Asti with the so-called merenda sinora. At that moment, that brunch that you have when you come back from you come back home from working in the fields, and you need to boost yourself. Then they used to eat butter, bread, butter, and anchovies, and a glass of Moscato d'Asti that matches perfectly the saltiness of the anchovies, the butteriness of the butter, the sweet tendency of the bread.
That's amazing. So, like for those out there that don't know, merenda is this snack that you get like after school or after work. So it's the food in between dinner. And now when I go have merenda, I'm 100% gonna have anchovy, burro, and pane, the bread, butter, and anchovy, and a glass of Moscato. I've never heard that, and I love that. So you know, in the States, you know, everybody for the most part thinks of Moscato d'Asti as a sweet wine. And how do you convince a sweet wine skeptic that Moscato d'Asti can be for them and more than just a sweet wine?
Well, it's quite easy because first of all, you just have to taste it, and then you realize that the wine perfectly matches every kind of pairing that you have in your mind. But at the same time, we can also have some more technical insight saying that the sweetness of these wines is always balanced by a great acidity, a great freshness that doesn't make the wine too heavy for your palate, and the sweetness that you may feel in that glass usually matches perfectly food and dishes that are modern, that are spicy, that are hot, and you always search for something more with more residual sugar when you have, for example, when you have a Chinese hot pot in front of you, or you have a Thai soup with that light spiciness that matches perfectly the sweetness of the Moscato. So we believe that Moscato is a contemporary wine that can match hundreds of food dishes from all over the world.
And that's like when I try to explain it to people, it's just like the essence of some of the most beautiful white peaches you could ever bite into. You know, when you get that perfect peach and it's got so much acidity that it doesn't appear sweet at all, but you get the fruitiness
Exactly.
of the
Yeah.
peach, and then you get that hint of mint, a little herb, and then this rush of acidity. And every time I have a glass of Moscato d'Asti, it's just this. It's like being in the best garden in a glass. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about the wine. In this moment of consumer introspection, in the growing market for like no and low alcohol wine, does Moscato d'Asti's like roughly 5% alcohol by volume set it up for success today?
Absolutely. Before low alcohol became a trend, Moscato was already there. We've always been there naturally because this wine is not de-alcoholized. This wine has always been having the same level of alcohol because it comes from a tradition of winemaking that highlights the great characteristics of an aromatic grape called Moscato. And this wine reflects perfectly the taste of the berry of this grape. That means that you have immediate connection to the berry, to the grapes, that the fruit from the fruit that you're eating. So it is also in terms of representing the variety. We believe that Moscato d'Asti is the ideal choice to understand how the Moscato, the character of a Moscato grape.
It is really interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up because I think I haven't tried every grape on earth that makes wine, but I've tried a bunch of them in the vineyard and then in the glass. And I feel Moscato d'Asti or the Moscato grape is one of the few grapes that directly translates. When you eat that berry and then you have the wine a few months later, it's almost the same. Whereas like if you have Nebbiolo as a grape and then you have Nebbiolo as a wine, even like Langhe Nebbiolo or something like that, there's similar characteristics, but they're pretty far apart. Where Moscato d'Asti is like this 100% through line.
Yeah, sure. The second, third level of production, the vinification and the refining in the bottle usually tend to change the character of wine. With Moscato d'Asti, it's completely different. The thing is that the wine in the end reflects, as you said perfectly, the grape that this wine is coming from. And this is also thanks to the technical production that has been allowed from the Martinotti method, because that really reflects perfectly, mirrors perfectly the character of the Moscato grape.
With that and the production method, I'm gonna talk about climate change. Moscato d'Asti is one of the key characteristics is its acidity. That's what keeps everything balanced. How do producers adapt to this ever-changing climate to ensure the product remains as energetic and vibrant and fresh as we experience it today?
Yeah, it's a tough challenge because we all know that climate change is forcing our growers to always take more carefully care of of their vineyards. But sustainability is the key, of course. As a consortium, we also help vine growers to understand the right moment of picking, for example, the Moscato grapes. We have a large number of vineyards as a consortium. We check the maturation process and we help to understand when is the right moment of picking. And we help vine growers to grow them to grow grapes in a specific way in order to maintain the freshness and to pick them at the right moment, because always acidity is the key. Usually there's also a third factor here in the Moscato grapes, Moscato growing area, and it's the aromatic maturation, which always makes things harder for wine growers to decide the right moment of picking, because that doesn't mean that the right moment of maturation in terms of sugar is the exact moment also for in order to have the right aromatic profiles. So it's always something that we are trying to support with our wine growers, and it's something that really is important in order to showcase on the market always the right level of quality for Moscato d'Asti.
And that brings us, I think, to again, Moscato d'Asti has one of the best quality to price ratios, in my opinion, for a bottle of wine. When you go to a wine shop or a restaurant in the United States, you can get the best versions of the wine at a price that's relatively affordable. With consumer wallets shrinking in our day and more people, spending the money on experiences and various activities, do you think there's a pairing or a specific dish that really shows the identity of Moscato d'Asti?
Well, I don't know. We have mentioned a few pairings, but I always one surprisingly fitting pairing that I find always interesting is pairing with some oysters, a glass of Moscato d'Asti with oysters. I know it's not something that in a day on a daily basis you may afford, but also having this good value wine doesn't mean that you don't have a luxury feel with pairing this wine with high-end dishes. So I think it deserves a try.
And I think that's, I mean, I can't wait to try that. I mean, oysters in Moscato d'Asti, I haven't done it. So next time I'm in Asti with you, you and me, let's shuck some oysters and down some Moscato d'Asti.
Sure.
But in Piemonte, so you gave us a traditional Marinda dish. What's another Piemontese dish that you generally get with Moscato d'Asti?
Well, for something more traditional, I would go, yeah, also in within the tradition of pairing Moscato d'Asti with desserts. The Piedmont hazelnut cake, it's always is a good to go because the hazelnut is another excellence coming out for Piedmont. So it's always a winning match pairing this hazelnut cake, Piedmont hazelnut cake with Moscato d'Asti. And of course, we have hundreds of different cheeses around, so it's always a perfect match, Moscato d'Asti and any kind of cheese that comes out from this beautiful region in terms of production.
And you travel throughout the world to talk about Moscato d'Asti, and Moscato d'Asti is one of the best made in Italy exports globally. In your experience, what is your most surprising food pairing you've had with Moscato d'Asti that just really blew you away? That's not Italian.
Hmm, hmm. Well, I was last year I was in New York at Zuma, having lunch with some journalists, and we all had a complete flight of Asian style food, and it's really hard to recall one specific dish that was matching perfectly, but I remember the whole lunch as one of my favorite moments in my career of wine speech.
And then I know for me that one of the most interesting kind of like savory pairings, and you alluded it to before, but like Thai, Vietnamese, Southeast Asian cuisine, because I think Moscato d'Asti, when I break it down in my head as a sommelier and as a journalist, there's the fruit component, which for me is normally peach, apricot, nectarine. Then there's an herbal component, which could be mint, or then also maybe bay leaf or something
Sage.
like sage, but definitely on that green spectrum. And then you've got the just the vibrant electric acidity that balances that sweetness. But again, like when you get a really good spicy chili on your palate and then you hit it, you get that herbaceousness, the fire from the chili. And this could be in Mexican cuisine, it could be in Thai, it could be in Calabrian cuisine. And then you get that splash of Moscato d'Asti. It just really sets everything right, where your palate just feels at one. And I think that's so special about food and wine pairing. And I think people have to look outside beyond dessert with this wine.
I totally agree. It's really hard for me to think of just one single dish to match with Moscato d'Asti, but I believe you may find many of them.
I mean, I think it's a wine that just needs to be maybe experimented more with sommeliers and chefs globally and just see what they can do is just like we did 20, 30 years ago with Riesling. It wasn't just, it started out as schnitzel and pfeffingen, and now, you go to any great Thai, sushi, Vietnamese restaurant, you'll see Riesling on the wine list there.
Totally agree. Totally agree. We have a great chance in terms of interest from the market in terms of what makes us different from other aromatic wines.
I wanted to circle back to affordability. And how do you convince the market and the frugal consumers right now that this is the wine they need?
Because in terms of positioning, you mean in price points? This
Yeah, I
kind
mean,
of
it's an affordable wine, as we were talking about. Is Moscato d'Asti the wine that frugal consumers need right now? So if you want to get wine and you want to make sure you save some money, but still have that experience at home, right? Is this the wine for those people?
it's the wine for those people because it matches many different moments of your daytime. You don't have to see it just as a wine that can match your brunch or your aperitif or any other moments, but it's just especially in summertime, you just come out from work and you open up the bottle that you have in the fridge, and it's so refreshing, so refilling your spirit, that actually it's a good to go in any moment of your day. And at that price point, at that positioning on the market, you always have the feeling of drinking a good value product coming from a specific area, a natural product, non-processed wine, natural in terms of sugar, in terms of carbon dioxide, nothing is added, and in terms of your, your, not only your stomach will appreciate it, but also your feeling, your general feeling will appreciate all these characters.
And do you think that quality price ratio also gives Moscato d'Asti, and the fact that it's low in alcohol, an edge or an opportunity with younger wine consumers or non-wine consumers who we're trying to bring into the community of drinking great wine?
Yeah, sure. In both ways, I believe that it can be, it can have success both towards those generation that are entering the wine business. I mean, the wine, drinking wine in this moment, because in terms of alcohol, we've all been, as Italians, we've all been introduced to wine through Asti or Moscato d'Asti, as 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 happened to you as well. And we believe that all the new generations can start appreciating wine from this unbelievable and unique style of wine.
I absolutely. I mean, I know my daughter takes sneaky snips of it every so often, and so you've already got a good entry point in the Porter household with my daughter.
And being the first one, first, you never forget your first love, so
Absolutely.
it will always remain in her mind and our mind that Moscato does has a specific place in our wine tasting experience.
And earlier today we were talking about some innovations and some, it's a historical wine region, but it's not resting on its laurels. Is there any news that you'd like to give to the world out there about what's going on in the Asti DOCG?
Well, the DOCG recently made a change in the code of production, allowing also the producers of the sparkling method to introduce a rosé style of sparkling Asti, because we also introduced the use of Brachetto grapes, which is an aromatic red variety, a local red variety, just like Moscato has a great history here in Piedmont. It's always been together with Moscato one of the traditional grapes always used in local productions. And we wanted to highlight this aromatic profile that makes these wines different from all the others. And we believe that also that with this new style of wine, we can be even more interesting for new generations for of consumers, for those who are looking for something low in alcohol but really high in pleasure. So we believe that we are giving an answer to the market that is looking for something new, something. Although there are many sparkling rosé wines, we believe that being aromatic, being made based on Brachetto and Moscato, this wine is going to have success on the market, on many markets all over the world.
Well, I'm excited for that, and I can't thank you enough for your time today, Giacomo. I think talking about a historic, legendary wine that really speaks to modern times, it's really special. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. I appreciated this as usual.
I look forward to my next glass of Moscato d'Asti with you.
Can look forward as well. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. Hope to meet you soon.
Grazie. This project is part of the promotional program Asti DOCG Experience, campaign financed under Regulation EU number 2021/2115 and in accordance with Ministerio dell'Agricoltura Italiano. With sweet or spicy, Moscato d'Asti is more than it seems. Have you tried any out-of-the-box Moscato d'Asti pairings? Let us know. You can email us your comments and questions at podcast@wineenthusiast.com. Remember, you can subscribe to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to your favorite shows. You can also go to wineenthusiast.com/podcast for more episodes and transcripts. This is Jeff Porter. Thanks for listening.